I've already talked about the strongest 7th generation Pokemon, and we've even looked into some of the most disappointing new Pokemon as well, but now it's time to leave a like, get hyped for the top 10 weakest Pokemon in Pokemon Sun and Moon. Now, before the list begins, I do want to make a bit of a clarification that there is a big difference between a Pokemon being disappointing and a Pokemon being weak. Let's look at Silvally, for example, that we had all of this buildup, that Type Null into Silvally is one of the most intriguing, complex storylines ever. I mean, Type Null is called Null. It's meaningless, yet at the same time is created to rival Arceus. It's meant to be a legendarily powerful Pokemon. We get Silvally, we see its design, it looks like it's going to be an awesome Pokemon, and then it turns out to be nothing. So disappointment is that expectation versus reality, that while Silvally isn't on the top 10 weakest Pokemon, it's certainly a lot less powerful than it should have been, that a lot of these new Pokemon are some of the most powerful Pokemon we've ever seen, like Toxapex, but Game Freak didn't even make the reach to make Silvally usable, so I will call it a disappointment. But let's go off with the weakest right now. So number 10, I'm just going to put Lycanroc. One of the biggest reasons why Lycanroc, both Midnight and Midday forms, are going to be on this list is because of coverage. As a pure Rock-type Pokemon, we're not going to get a lot of same-type attack-boosted moves to do any kind of work. And then we look at the rest of the coverage, it's pretty much Crunch. So we have to use Stone Edge, which is an unreliable move since it doesn't have perfect accuracy, Crunch, which is okay for power, and then our overall coverage with the rest of our moves doesn't really go anywhere, so the Pokemon kind of fall flat. And then with the stats, there's other Rock-type Pokemon that are comparable and have a little bit of an edge in some kind of way. That Accelerock just turns out to be weaker than a Sucker Punch, and then Aerodactyl, for the Lycanroc Midday form, Aerodactyl is going to be faster and loses a negligible amount of damage, whilst having more utility in doubles and just better coverage overall. Also the ability to Mega and then get Tough Claws and then be absolutely insane. As for Lycanroc's Midnight form, it doesn't really work as a Rock-type Pokemon. The 82 speed means it's getting outsped by a lot of Pokemon anyways, and it's not getting the bulk of other Rock-type Pokemon. So we look at something like Sudowoodo. Sudowoodo is going to be tankier than Lycanroc Midnight, have a close amount of damage, and then it has the drop in speed that you would expect to have a Rock-type Pokemon. So I just see that there's other comparable Pokemon that don't make the Lycanroc form stand out. Number 9 on the list is going to be Togedemaru, mostly because of stats. That a lot of Pokemon, it's either going to be stats or moveset or some kind of other issue with its identity, but Togedemaru, no stat breaks over 100, and then we have an okay amount of speed with an okay-ish amount of attack, and then we're super frail. Like, we have no tankiness whatsoever, so it's going to make it fairly tricky to use Togedemaru, and for Steel-type Pokemon, we only get Gyro Ball, so we're really just going to be able to use Electric-type moves offensively, since our Gyro Ball is doing no damage with our low amount of attack and our already high amount of speed, which clashes with the idea of Gyro Ball, which means you have to be slower to do more damage, so we're getting locked out of half of our typing, and that doesn't feel good at all. Number 8 on the list is going to be Shiinotic. Oh man, the typing of Shiinotic really hurts right here. That Fairy-type Pokemon are super popular, and if you eat a Poison-type move, you are just going to be straight up dead on the Shiinotic. Flying, Steel, Fire, Ice, there's so many super effective hits that the Shiinotic has to worry about, so we're starting off bad, and then when we look at the stats, we're supposed to be really tanky. We have 30 on the speed, and there's really nothing that we get for trading that. 60 hit points with 80 and 100 on the defenses means we're going to be even below average for like a dedicated tank Pokemon. We can go into full tank investment, and we're still going to melt to super effective hits, and we still don't get much survivability overall. So similar to Lycanroc, there's just a better Pokemon option like the Amoonguss. Amoonguss does a lot of what Shiinotic does. Puts Pokemon to sleep, and then it also has a little bit of crazy sustain, but Amoonguss has some other advantages. It runs Black Sludge, which means your leftover slot is going to be open, and it even has Regenerator. Shiinotic doesn't really get to do much with any of its abilities, and while it does have some of the craziest moves in the game, like we have Spore plus Leech Seed into a Strength Sap, that's absolutely terrifying, but looks like Game Freak was a little too timid with the typing and with the stats to make Shiinotic an absolute threat. Number 7 on this list is going to be Gumshoes. So as we saw Gumshoes, develop, we were wondering what was going to happen with that Stakeout ability. That it really kind of rode into how Stakeout would work with the rest of its moveset and the stats, and then it just turns out Gumshoes is really slow and not super tanky. So you kind of have to force a switch to begin with, and that's going to be a big problem with that Stakeout ability, because when you think about it, not a lot of Pokemon are going to be scared of Gumshoes. Gumshoes doesn't come in, force a switch on an opponent, and then get to make use of that Stakeout ability. And even if it manages to KO a Pokemon, it's still fairly slow, so it has a big chance of getting beaten up on before it can make even more use and start the snowball that we expect out of the Gumshoes. 45 speed doesn't even let you scarf it, so it takes a lot of speed investment and craziness, and it's overall not worth it in the end. Number 6 on this list is going to be Crabominable. I'm just going to put this on screen and you let that sink in. We have 6 weaknesses, so that means something's going to hit us super effective, and our day is going to suck from there. And also, it's kind of similar to the Gumshoes, that it's really slow, so it can't build up a lot of momentum to start knocking opponents down, and that's very vulnerable to just getting hit by very powerful hits, and it doesn't get to do much of anything, but it's going to be worse than Gumshoes because there's just a lot more super effective hits, and even then, like, 132 on the attack sounds great, but you're going to be surprised at the lack of KOs that you're finding neutrally, so Crabominable, it just doesn't work. And as one of the few Ice-type Pokemon introduced in the 7th generation, it just doesn't work out at all. Number 5 on this list is going to be a Lowland Persian, and I don't even know what happened. Like, you look at the stats for a Lowland Persian, and it got the ultimate injustice. It had 10 attack points taken off of its attack and then put into its special attack. So now we're a Dark-type Pokemon, and we get to use that Dark Pulse, and it would suck, because if we had access to that Sucker Punch, then that means our Sucker Punch would be doing more damage. Its Stab will have a higher amount of attack, but even then, a Lowland Persian doesn't get the Sucker Punch. That seems like one of the first options that you would go to for a tricky little backstabbing, nefarious Pokemon like the Lowland Persian. Like, this thing is mean, and it's supposed to be a mean Pokemon, but it can't even Sucker Punch, so that doesn't make a lot of sense. And then we look at the Lowland Persian's moveset, and it's all physical moves, so we lose attack off of our primary source of damage, which is going to be physical, and then we trade it for Power Gem and a Stab Dark Pulse at 75 power. That's just unusable. And then the rest of the stats on the Lowland Persian are also really bad. Number 4 on the list is going to be a Lowland Sandslash. So if we've learned anything from Aurorus, it's that you cannot give a Pokemon 2 4x weaknesses and then expect it to be good. And then the stats on the Sandslash are very awkward. That, okay, we see a fighting type move and we die. We see a fire type move, we die. We see a ground type move, we die. So having 75 hit points, 120 defense doesn't really mean as much as it should. And then at the end of the day, we're still super frail to special attacks. We're getting outsped by everything. And then 100 attack isn't even that good. So a quick summary of what's going on with the Alolan Sandslash. It's going to be about as stable as an Aurorus, and then it's going to be a lesser option to the Beartic. That Beartic with Slush Rush is just going to be doing more damage, and if you want to run a straight up Pokemon without playing any Hail shenanigans, Mamoswine just outclasses it, because you can set up Stealth Rocks, and you're going to be able to get more damage on a faster Pokemon, so with better coverage. So I don't really see any point to running the Alolan Sandslash. Number 3 on the list is going to be Gus Lord. I'm about as surprised as you guys to see an Ultra Beast in the bottom 3 Pokemon introduced in the 7th generation. I had so many high hopes for the Gus Lord, but then when you look at it, oh, that's just a lot of weakness. Like a 4x weakness to Fairy, and then 4 other weaknesses just makes it hard to set up. That Gus Lord, it gets the stockpile. It gets the chance of boosting its defenses and becoming unkillable, but then it lacks sustain, and then its damage is so oddly split. 101 attack, 97 special attack. What are you going to do with that? And then you look at the moveset for the Gus Lord, and it is just one of the strangest things ever. We have everything. We have the Stomping Tantrum, we have its Steamroller, we throw in a Hammer Arm with a Crunch. Our Stab is pretty good, but it doesn't really mean much with around 100 on the offensive stats. There's no real way to like reliably boost it and then sustain out, and overall Gus Lord just doesn't get the recovery. It doesn't have extra options to make use of that. So it's an eclectic Pokemon. I like Game Freak for the try, but overall, it just gets shut down before it gets a chance to do anything. So it's a pretty bad Pokemon. Number 2 on the list is going to be the Lowland Eradicate. So Faticate also had a really weird just stat change overall. That dropped down to 77 base speed. It again loses attack points. That means its Sucker Punch, its physical options are going to be restricted. And then it gets slightly tankier, but 75, 70, 80 on defenses is not tanky at all. It's kind of like what happened to Lycanroc, but even worse in a way. And then we go and look at the just weaknesses. So we have a normal fighting type Pokemon, which means we have added weaknesses for no reason. Like, oh, by the way, 4x super effective to fighting, so you can't survive any of those moves. We do pick up the Psychic immunity and a resistance to Dark, but that's not really a good trade overall. And then normal Dark isn't even that good offensively, so a Lowland Eradicate doesn't get much of a chance to do anything. But that's nothing. That's got nothing on the absolute worst Pokemon in the 7th generation, and that is Bruxish. Honestly, guys, after I did my how to use Bruxish video, that is the only reason why I was inspired to make this. I was like, wow, Bruxish is so bad, I need to do a top 10 just so I can put it at the bottom of that list. So let's go look at the stats. We don't have much. We don't outspeed anything on 92 speed, and we don't kill anything with a 105 attack. So that doesn't really help us out, and then we're super frail also. And then, like, let's just take a clip from my video, because I was looking at what to do, and I think that summarizes it. That there's really nothing you can do with the Bruxish. That Waterium Z Rain Dance for the speed is what gets you on a viable speed tier, but then you don't have a lot of damage. Even Strong Jaw plus Psychic Fangs on a 105 attack isn't enough to kill anything. Waterfall, Swords Dance opportunities, like, it's all about luck with the Bruxish. You just have to hope that your opponent hands you like 4 turns worth of setup, and then maybe you can do something with the Bruxish. And also, I feel the YouTube comments had it best. What is Bruxish? Just an egg move slave to give Sharpedo Psychic Fangs, and that is the only use that Bruxish has. So if you guys enjoyed the video, those are the top 10 weakest Pokemon in Pokemon Sun and Moon. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.